This is a cast bronze ring, and it is a part of a sculpture. Typically it'll have a figure in here, be it an old person or a child or somebody leaning back reading a book or leaning back holding a baby. And my wife has made several of these sculptures and we've cast them. We just haven't, this one's never been, this one is incomplete. It doesn't have a figure. But she has a customer who's interested in these, but she wants them much bigger. She wants them 2 foot in diameter. So I've found this, I bent in a circle by hand. This I didn't bend the bronze, I bent a steel ring. We used that to cover with clay, and then we pulled a rubber mold, and then we poured waxes, and from the waxes we poured the bronze. So that little circle is made out of this stuff, and this is part of a hurricane fence. And it's real soft and it bends real easy, and I just bent it around with a hammer and made it look good. But to bend a 2 foot circle and have it look decent is a different thing. Now I've got this flat steel bar that I wanted to use, and there's no way I'm gonna bend that by hand. I can put heat on it and bend it, but it's gonna be all woppy. So, and I've always wanted one of those little metal rolling jigs, so I'm gonna make one. I started out, I ordered 2 wheels, Craigslist or Amazon, I don't really remember what. They're steel. They're fairly strong. I mean, if you put a super load on them, you probably bend the little supports here, but they're gonna work for me. And then I dug around the yard and I found this little wheel, and I have no idea what it's from, but the good thing is the hole in the center is 3/4. I don't have a lathe, so I have to work with things that are standard sizes. So another amazing thing about this little wheel is it fits right inside this galvanized pipe. So I can, if I get that pipe out of there, I can weld a piece of that around this, have a smooth wheel, and have it a little bit wider so to match the other ones. So then I have my 3 wheels, and that's basically what all the rollers are made like. So there's lots of examples of rollers made on YouTube. Basically, almost all of them have 2 fixed wheels, and then they all have an adjustable 3rd wheel. And as you tighten this wheel, as you move this wheel closer to these 2 wheels, you bend the material, and then you roll it, and it rolls it around in a circle. It's a little tricky because you have to have it open on one side to get the ring in and out. So this wheel is going to have to be cantilevered. It has to have a crank on it, which is weird when you cantilever something, because usually there's a nut welded on the end, but in this case you have to put some sort of drive handle. So I've got a wheel that'll work. I've got these 2 idlers that'll work. For a tensioning mechanism, I've got these 2 items, which are basically the same. This is from a jack on the tongue of a trailer, and it's a good Acme thread, and it has a big heavy nut. So I figured I could make some kind of adjustment with this. This is basically the same thing. I haven't taken it apart. This one I have the male and the female. And then I realized out here in the boneyard, I've got this pipe stand that I've had for years and years. I've used not one time. I have no use for it, and it has the unique feature. The neat thing about this is these 2 wheels, well, this one doesn't move. This wheel moves back and forth, and it's on a track, and it's got an Acme thread inside it, and it was rusted silent, but I put the big wrench on it, and I can turn it. I'm going to cut off the frame. Probably going to cut this shorter. I'm going to take off this wheel, put my wheel on there sideways, and put the other 2 wheels on here, and this is going to be the start of the bender. This is interesting. Originally I was going to cut this thing up and just use part of it because it's so big. When I took it apart, I realized this is this Acme shaft that's in there is one half is left hand and one half is right hand. So it's really pretty cool. So I'm thinking now I'll just leave it be, use it to make my rolling mill. I'll bolt on pieces, and if for any reason I ever have to or ever need this thing, I can just unbolt the roller part and put the old wheels back on. So got this piece of heavy angle. If I bolt this here where this used to be, I'll put my two wheels here, and then I just have to deal with the other wheel when I get to it. So I drilled my holes and I kind of cleaned this part up a little bit. Cut the corners off so I wouldn't impale myself one day in the future. And I didn't really know where to put the wheels, so rather than drill the holes, which are kind of harder to fix, I just kind of tacked them on there. And if it works, I might drill them and bolt them, or I might just leave them. I don't think they're going to fall off. They're just in compression. So this is ready to bolt on. And the next step, I got this fairly heavy plate. I will drill it and bolt it here, and then I have I believe it's 5/8 stainless all thread. It's fine thread. I will drill this, put a nut on the back and the front, and weld this nut, and that'll help me make sure that it's vertical when I weld it. And then, sorry about that, we're having a bad camera battery day. I lost a lot of footage, but basically the plate is ready. I cut the corners off and put this flap disc on those corners. I don't like sharp corners, especially on things that are heavy. And then I drilled the two holes to mount the plate to the slide, which is a 3/8 bit. And then I drilled the 5/8 hole for the shaft for the tensioning wheel. And then we brought it back and got it ready to start welding. All right, so the plate is cut for the these little bolts. And I drilled a hole for the shaft for the other roller, and I cleaned all the paint off the stainless steel. And I'm gonna put a nut top and bottom, tighten it up real tight, and I'm hoping that will hold it vertically when I weld it. Otherwise I don't really have a way to hold it tight. And after I weld it, I'm gonna cut the bottom one off. So after we weld it, so I'll weld this and I'll weld this, and after it's welded I'll cut the bottom off and plug weld that flat, and that will be the holder for the little idler wheel for the other wheel. No, that's not the idler wheel. That'll be the holder for the driving wheel. So now I have the shaft and it's mounted to the slide, but once again, the third time in the last hour, I lost the little wheel. So frustrating. I don't know, maybe not. So I drilled out the pin, and this end of this shaft is sticking out a little bit, so I'm going to put a socket on this end and put it in the vise and see if I can't push it, get it to move. So I was able to get it to move and ended up pushing it all the way out with a little socket on the inside and a big socket around on the other side to let the pin have room to come out the end. It was very, very tight. This is a very, very old handle. All right, this is where we are. The shaft is rigid. It's threaded into the nut, which is welded, and the shaft is welded on the back side, and it's pretty doggone plumb. And this is the little magic wheel I found that will rotate on the 5/8 shaft. I don't know what it's made out of. Welding it may be a problem. Okay, then we're going to run a nut down on top of that. And I'm not going to do it because it takes a long time. So that will keep the driving wheel from moving. It'll be fixed. And then we'll slide this over the nut and weld it. And then we'll put the handle over that and weld it. So now the handle will turn the driving wheel, and done. Let's see if it'll work. I think I'm gonna mark it right here and take a chisel and put a little divot in the thread, so when the nut gets down that far, it'll get kind of tight. It's stainless, so you got to be careful. Pretty tight. Hope I didn't screw it up. All right. I'm not going anymore. Well, let me go a little more. Okay, it's not going to come loose by itself. Let me see what we can do in the way of welding this thing. Okay, so I lost that welding video also, but I used the stainless steel stick rods and I tacked the pipe to the roller wheel in 4 places, and I tacked the handle to the pipe in 4 places, and it was kind of just an experiment to see what it was like. And then I spent the next 30 minutes, like you see, pulling on this handle really hard, and it didn't come loose. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm done with that. And I don't think I'll put that galvanized pipe sleeve over the roller because it works just fine like it is. It's very hard to turn, probably because this metal's so thick. I'll back off a little bit. But the handle hadn't broken yet. Could be a little longer. Well, I'm not gonna lie, this thing is really hard to crank, but it's probably a combination of none of these wheels have bearings, and this piece of metal I'm bending is probably, I don't think it's a quarter, but it's probably 3/32. It's heavy stuff, but it's working. Everything works good. Might have been my imagination, but it seemed to roll easier as the curve got more pronounced in the steel. I didn't put a torque wrench on it, so I'm not sure about that, but it just seemed like it. Alright, we got our circle, and I got a blister. And now I need to get it on the table and get it right and cut the ends and weld it, and then I'll bring it back and roll the weld and try to get the lump out. So it's 4 o'clock, I got my circle I wanted. I got here after lunch, so a little less than 4 hours, but it would have taken much longer if I wouldn't have had this little contraption that I could start out with. But I got the circle I wanted, now I can hang the deal on the wall, and if I ever need it again, I have it.